The year was 2157. The U.S. horizon drifted slowly through space near Jupiter's orbit. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the massive gas giant through the viewing window. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, collecting data on Jupiter's changing storm patterns. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Officer Ben Collins from his monitoring station. "An object approaching from Sector 7. It's moving fast." Frank walked over to Ben's station and looked at the radar. "Asteroid?" "No, sir. The trajectory is too controlled, and it's slowing down." Lieutenant Susan Gray joined them, her face serious as she studied the readings. "That's not one of ours, Captain." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this might mean. First contact with an alien species. Humanity had been searching the stars for decades, sending signals into deep space, hoping for a response. But they never expected it to happen here, in their own solar system. "Battle stations," Frank ordered calmly. "But no aggressive posture. All weapons systems remain offline." The crew moved quickly, preparing for whatever might come. "It's stopping about 10,000 kilometers from our position," Ben reported. "I'm getting clearer readings now. It's definitely a ship, unlike anything we've ever built." The strange vessel appeared on their screens, sleek, almost organic in design, with no visible engines or weapons. It shimmered with a bluish glow that seemed to bend the starlight around it. "They're scanning us," Susan said, monitoring the sensor readings. "Very thorough scans. They're looking at everything. Our whole composition, power systems, life signs." Frank stepped forward. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies." Susan worked at her console. "Channel open, sir." Frank cleared his throat. "This is Captain Frank Miller of the Earth vessel U.S. Horizon. We come in peace and welcome this opportunity for first contact between our species." For several minutes, there was no response. The alien ship continued its scans, methodically examining the human vessel. Then suddenly, a burst of sounds came through the speakers, clicks, whistles, and tones that rose and fell in complex patterns. Susan rushed to analyze the sounds. "It's a language, sir. Give me a minute to run it through our translation matrix." The crew waited anxiously as Susan worked. Finally, she looked up. "I've got something. It's rough, but..." She pressed a button, and a voice spoke through the ship's speakers. The words were oddly spaced, and the accent was unlike any human language. But the message was clear enough. "Human vessel identified. Confirmation required. Are you humans?" Frank exchanged glances with his officers before responding. "Yes, we are humans from the planet Earth." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned, the translator struggling to interpret the emotional undertones that seemed to color their response. "Grave error. Protocol violation. We must report. We must retreat." Susan frowned. "Captain, I'm detecting a spike in their power systems. I think they're..." Before she could finish, the alien ship began to move away rapidly. "Sir, they're leaving," Ben exclaimed. "Accelerating too. That can't be right. They're gone." Frank stared at the empty space where the alien vessel had been moments before. "What just happened? Susan, any insights on their communication?" Susan shook her head, puzzled. "Their final transmission contained emotional markers our system identified as fear, sir." "Fear," Frank repeated. "They were afraid of us. It seems that way." And there was something else in their language patterns, something like recognition, as if they knew about humans already. Frank looked out at the stars, a strange feeling settling in his stomach. "Report this to Earth Command immediately. Include every detail of the encounter." As the U.S. Horizon turned back toward Earth, none of the crew could have known that across the galaxy, emergency meetings were being called among the highest councils of the Galactic Confederation. The most sacred and terrifying law had been broken. We don't kill humans. And now, for the first time in thousands of years, humans had been found. 5 years had passed since humanity's first alien encounter. Earth had established a small colony on Mars, and space exploration expanded rapidly. The Galactic Confederation finally acknowledged humanity officially and allowed a small human embassy on their neutral space station, Nexus 7. Jack Porter sat at his desk in the human embassy, reviewing reports from Earth. As a junior diplomat, most of his work involved basic paperwork and occasional meetings with minor alien officials. Today was different. Jack had received a strange data file by mistake. The sender had quickly sent an urgent message to delete it without reading, which only made Jack more curious. The file contained references to something called the Human Protection Protocol. Jack had never heard of this before. "Zex, do you know anything about this Human Protection Protocol?" Jack asked his alien assistant. Zex froze. The tall, thin alien with grayish skin and 4 arms suddenly looked very uncomfortable. His large, dark eyes darted around the room. "Where did you hear about that, sir?" Zex asked quietly. Jack pointed to his screen. "It was in this file someone sent me by mistake." "What is it?" Zex closed the office door and lowered his voice. "You were not supposed to see that, Mr. Porter. It is classified information." "Classified by whom?" "Earth doesn't classify things with that name." Zex sat down, his long fingers tapping nervously against the desk. "By the Galactic Confederation. It is one of our oldest and most important laws." Jack leaned forward. "What law?" "The law that we don't kill humans," Zex said simply. Jack laughed, but Zex remained serious. "You're not joking, are you?" "No, Mr. Porter. Every species in the Confederation must follow this rule. It is why many were so upset when we discovered your kind still existed." Jack tried to understand. "You mean there's a specific law that says aliens can't harm humans? Why just humans? There are thousands of species in the Confederation, right?" Zex shifted uncomfortably. "The rule exists because of the event." "What event?" "It happened long ago, before my people joined the Confederation, before many of our worlds had even developed space travel." Zex looked genuinely afraid now. "The records say that humans once ruled much of the galaxy." Jack shook his head. "That's impossible. We've barely left our solar system. Not your people specifically, perhaps your ancestors. The beings the records described looked like humans but possessed great powers." Jack thought about this. "So you're saying some human-like species once existed, and they were so dangerous that the Confederation created a law specifically preventing anyone from harming humans?" "Yes. When your ship was discovered 5 years ago, it caused great fear. Many believed the Terrans had returned." "Terrans? You mean Earth people?" Zex nodded. "The records call them Terrans. They nearly destroyed all other life in the galaxy before they disappeared. The law was created afterward, as a precaution." "A precaution against what?" Jack asked. Zex stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the vast space station, where hundreds of alien species lived and worked. "Against their return. The histories say that to harm a human is to invite destruction beyond imagination." Jack joined Zex at the window. "That's why that alien ship fled when they discovered the horizon was human." "Yes. They violated the law simply by scanning your ship without permission." "They risked much." Jack watched the busy station activity outside. "Does Earth know about this?" "Your leaders were told some version of the truth, but the Confederation decided it would be unwise to reveal everything to humans." "Why?" Zex turned to Jack with all 4 of his arms clasped in a gesture of deep concern. "Because, Mr. Porter, the Confederation fears that if humans learn about their past, they might remember how to use their powers again. And that terrifies the galaxy more than anything else." Dr. Olivia Patel brushed dirt from the strange symbol carved into the stone wall. The blue light of her portable lamp cast eerie shadows in the ancient chamber. This moon orbiting a gas giant in the Centauri system had once been home to a civilization that disappeared over 5,000 years ago. "Ellen, come look at this." she called to her colleague. Dr. Alan West crossed the chamber, careful not to disturb the grid markers on the floor. He knelt beside Olivia and examined the carving. "Another one showing the figures with the raised arms?" he asked. "Yes, but look at the creatures around them." Olivia traced her finger near the carving without touching it. "They're bowing, or maybe cowering," Alan finished her thought, "just like the ones we found yesterday." For 3 weeks, they had been excavating this site after getting permission from the Galactic Confederation. The ruins were surprisingly well preserved, with carvings and paintings that depicted what appeared to be a highly advanced society. But one image kept appearing throughout the ruins. Tall, two-armed, two-legged figures that looked remarkably human, surrounded by different alien species that seemed to be showing fear or respect. "I've been working on these text fragments," Alan said, pulling out his tablet. "The language shares roots with several modern Confederation languages. I think I'm starting to understand parts of it." Olivia stood up, stretching her back after hours of careful excavation. "What does it say?" "It's not complete, but there are references to beings called the Shapers or the Molders. The text describes them as having the power to bend reality." "Bend reality? What does that mean?" Alan scrolled through his notes. "From what I can piece together, these beings could manipulate matter and energy with their minds. They could destroy or create with a thought." "And you think these humanoid figures are these Shapers?" Olivia asked, looking back at the carving. "I do. And there's more." Alan's voice grew quieter. "There's a passage about a great war. The Shapers fought among themselves, and the destruction was beyond imagining. Entire star systems were erased." Olivia felt a chill despite the warmth of the chamber. "When did this war happen?" "According to these dating methods, approximately 12,000 years ago. Around the end of Earth's last ice age," Olivia murmured. Alan nodded slowly. "The timing matches several extinction events on other worlds throughout this sector of the galaxy." Olivia walked to another wall where a large mural depicted what appeared to be a battle scene. The human-like figures stood with arms outstretched while planets shattered around them. "Do you think there's a connection between these Shapers and humans?" she asked. "I don't know, but the physical resemblance is striking." Alan joined her at the mural. "And there's something else I haven't told you yet. I found a reference to what happened after the war." "What?" "The survivors created a law. The text calls it the Preservation Edict. It states that no harm should ever come to the Shapers, even if they appear without their powers." Olivia's eyes widened. "The Human Protection Protocol. That's what we've been hearing whispers about since the first contact incident." "Exactly. I think the Confederation knows about this history." Alan touched one of the human-like figures on the wall. "They believe we are these Shapers, or their descendants. They fear us because of what we once were capable of doing." Olivia took out her camera and began documenting everything in the chamber. "We need to report this to Earth immediately." "Do you think that's wise?" Alan asked. "If the Confederation has been hiding this from us, there must be a reason." "People deserve to know their history," Olivia said firmly, "even if that history is difficult to believe." As they worked, neither noticed the small drone hovering in the shadows of the chamber, its recording eye watching their every move, transmitting their discovery to anxious observers many light years away. Commander Peter Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.S. Endeavour, watching the Exolidian fleet through the main view screen. 12 alien ships surrounded the small human mining colony on asteroid KB 728. The colony had been established just 3 months ago, after scans showed the asteroid was rich in rare minerals. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Communications Officer Lisa Wright. Peter took a deep breath. "Put them through." The screen changed to show a Exolidian commander. The alien had blue-gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. When it spoke, its translator converted the clicks and whistles into English. "Human vessel, we repeat our demand. Your mining colony has entered Solidian territory. It must be removed within 1 planetary rotation. Ambassador Krell, as I've explained, Our charts show this asteroid is in neutral space, Peter replied calmly. We checked with Confederation mapping before establishing the colony. Your information is incorrect, the Xylidian insisted. This region has been Xylidian hunting grounds for generations. Peter looked at his first officer, Joe Simmons, who shrugged slightly. The situation was tense, but oddly restrained. Despite their claims and superior numbers, the Xylidian ships kept a respectful distance from both the colony and the Endeavor. Ambassador, I propose we both contact Confederation headquarters for clarification, Peter offered. In the meantime, our colonists will pause all mining operations. The Xylidians' 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Unacceptable. The colony must be evacuated. That would cause unnecessary hardship to our people, Peter argued. There are 73 men and women down there. We are aware of the exact number of humans, the Xylidian said. We have scanned the colony thoroughly. All 73 will be permitted safe passage. Peter found this strange. The aliens seemed fixated on the precise count of humans, as if that number was critically important to them. I need time to consult with Earth Command, Peter said. You have 6 hours, the Xylidian replied before ending the transmission. Peter turned to his officers. Opinions. Lisa spoke first. Sir, have you noticed they're being very careful about how they threaten us? They demand we leave but make no actual threats against the colonists. I noticed that too, Joe added. It's like they're afraid to even imply they might harm humans. Peter walked to the tactical station where Officer Kelly Martinez was monitoring the Xylidian fleet. Kelly, what's your assessment of their weapons status? They're powered up but not targeted, sir, Kelly replied. It's strange. Their formation is defensive, not offensive. She pointed to her display. They're positioned to block escape routes, but they're keeping unusual distance from our ships. It fits the pattern we've been seeing, Peter said quietly. Hostility mixed with extreme caution. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Sir, one of the Xylidian vessels is approaching the colony, Kelly shouted. Peter rushed back to his chair. On screen, a smaller Xylidian ship had broken formation and was moving toward the asteroid. They're scanning the colony surface, Kelly reported. Looks like they're checking something specific. Hail them immediately, Peter ordered. Before Lisa could establish contact, Kelly's console beeped urgently. Sir, they've launched something toward the colony. Defensive measures, Peter commanded. Kelly reacted instinctively. Her finger hit the weapon's control, and a pulse from the Endeavor struck the Xylidian projectile. The shot went wide, clipping the alien ship's sensor array. The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what had happened. They had fired on an alien vessel. The reaction was immediate. The entire Xylidian fleet scattered in apparent panic, breaking formation and retreating to a safe distance. They're hailing us on all frequencies, sir, Lisa said, her voice shaking. They're apologizing. Apologizing? Peter asked, confused. Yes, sir. The message says, no harm intended. Probe was scientific only. Please accept deepest apologies for misunderstanding. We will withdraw completely from this region. Peter stared at the retreating ships in disbelief. They fired first, and they're apologizing to us. Joe moved closer to Peter, speaking quietly. Sir, it's like they're terrified we might retaliate. But why? Peter wondered. What are they so afraid we might do? William Carter rubbed his tired eyes. The night shift at Artemis III, a remote human outpost near the edge of explored space, was always quiet. Too quiet. As a data specialist, his job was to monitor communications and maintain the station's information systems. Most nights, nothing happened. Tonight was different. His system had just received an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. This wasn't entirely unusual. Space was full of random signals, but this one was directed specifically at Artemis III's secure channel. William hesitated before opening it, Security protocols stated he should report any suspicious transmissions to his supervisor, but curiosity got the better of him. He ran a quick scan to check for viruses or malicious code. Finding none, he began the decryption process. The files appeared on his screen, and William's eyes widened. They were historical records, thousands of them, written in various alien languages, but with an attached translation matrix. The files dated back thousands of years and described a species called the Terrans. "This can't be right," William muttered to himself as he read. According to the archives, Terrans were beings who looked exactly like humans but possessed abilities that seemed impossible. They could manipulate matter with their minds, travel vast distances instantly, and even alter the fabric of reality itself. The records claimed these Terrans had ruled much of the galaxy for centuries, sometimes benevolently, sometimes cruelly. William scrolled through file after file, his heart racing. One record described a war among the Terrans that had devastating consequences for the entire galaxy. 3 star systems were completely erased from existence in an event called the Cleansing. After this catastrophic event, the Terrans mysteriously disappeared. The surviving species in the galaxy established a new order, the Galactic Confederation, with one primary rule: we don't kill humans. The rule was created out of fear that harming humans might someday trigger the return of the Terrans and their godlike powers. "William, what are you doing?" William jumped at the voice. His supervisor, Nicol Rogers, stood behind him, looking at his screen with concern. "I received this transmission about an hour ago," William explained, quickly composing himself. It's about humans, or rather, beings that looked like humans called Terrans." Nicol leaned closer, her expression changing from concern to shock as she scanned the files. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know. The source is hidden." Nicol pulled up a chair and sat beside William. "Show me everything." For the next hour, they read through the archives together. The files contained detailed accounts of Terran abilities, their civilization, and the aftermath of their disappearance. "This explains so much," Nicol said quietly. "The way alien species treat us, with deference but also distance. They're not respecting us. They're terrified of us." William nodded. According to this, the Confederation has known all along that modern humans are somehow connected to these Terrans. They'd been watching us, waiting to see if we develop the same abilities. "But we haven't," Nicol pointed out. "We're just normal humans." "Maybe not yet," William said, pointing to another file. "Look at this. It suggests Terran abilities were latent until activated by certain conditions. Extreme stress, life-threatening situations." Nicol stood up suddenly. "We need to report this to Earth immediately." "Wait," William said, grabbing her arm. "Think about what happens if this information gets out. People will panic, or worse, start trying to awaken these supposed powers." "People deserve to know the truth about why the galaxy fears us," Nicol argued. "And what if it's not true?" William countered. "What if this is some kind of disinformation campaign? We need to verify this first." Before Nicol could respond, an alert sounded on William's console. The station's sensors had detected multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel nearby. "That's not a scheduled arrival," Nicol said, suddenly tense. William checked the readings and felt a chill run down his spine. "They're not human ships." Alarms blared throughout Copernicus Research Station. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Linda Benson, the station director, rushed toward the command center, passing frightened staff members along the way. "What's the situation?" she demanded as she entered the room. Security Chief George Martinez pointed to the main screen. 3 alien vessels, ma'am. They appeared out of nowhere about 10 minutes ago. They're jamming our communications with Earth." Linda studied the ships on the display. They were unlike any she had seen before. Sleek, dark vessels with strange protrusions that seemed to shift and change shape. "Have they made contact?" she asked. "Yes," George replied, his face grim. They're calling themselves the Trusters. They say they want to meet with humans face to face. For what purpose? They wouldn't say, but they were very specific about wanting to meet actual humans. They mentioned that several times. Linda frowned. This was unusual. Most alien species avoided direct contact with humans when possible. The diplomatic protocols established by the Galactic Confederation generally kept interactions formal and limited. Tell them I'll meet with one representative in Docking Bay 3, Linda decided. Security Team Alpha will accompany me. George looked concerned. Are you sure that's wise, Mom? No, Linda admitted. But I don't see that we have many options. They've cut our communications, and we're outgunned. Let's hear what they want. 30 minutes later, Linda stood in the docking bay with George and 4 armed security officers. The bay doors opened slowly, revealing a single alien figure. The creature that entered was tall and thin with mottled green skin. It had no visible mouth, but its large eyes blinked rapidly as it surveyed the humans. I am Speaker Vos of the Trusters. The alien's voice came from a device at its neck. Thank you for meeting with me, Director Benson. How do you know my name? Linda asked. We have studied humans extensively, Vos replied. We know much about your kind. What do you want from us? The alien's eyes narrowed. Truth. For generations, the Confederation has lived in fear of humans because of ancient legends. We believe these fears are unfounded. We believe modern humans are not the same as the Terrans of old. Linda tensed. Few outside of high-level human government officials knew about the Terrans. What do you mean? The legends say that Terrans possessed great powers, Vos continued. That they could reshape reality with a thought. That to harm one would bring destruction upon the attacker. And what does this have to do with us? Linda asked, though she already feared the answer. We wish to test the legend, Vos said simply. Before anyone could react, a beam shot from Vos' device. It struck one of the security officers directly in the chest. The man fell to the ground, clearly dead. No. Linda screamed as George and the remaining officers raised their weapons. Hold your fire, Vos commanded, raising both hands. We had to know. Now we wait. Wait for what? George demanded, his weapon trained on the alien's head. For the consequence, Vos explained. The legends say that when a human is killed, terrible vengeance follows. Reality itself is torn apart by the dead human's kind. Linda knelt beside the fallen officer, checking for a pulse and finding none. Rage filled her. You murdered him to test a legend. Yes, Vos said, showing no remorse. And now we know the truth. Nothing has happened. No great power has struck me down. The modern humans are not the Terrans of legend. You are just another species. Vos turned toward the docking bay doors. This knowledge will change everything. The Confederation has kept your kind protected based on fear of ancient powers you do not possess. That protection will now end. As Vos walked away, Linda felt something strange. A tingling sensation spread through her body, starting in her fingertips. The lights in the docking bay flickered. Wait, she called out. The alien turned back. You're wrong, Linda said, her voice suddenly calm despite her anger. Something is happening. A small tool on the nearby workbench began to vibrate. Then it rose slowly into the air, floating as if gravity had ceased to exist around it. Vos' eyes widened in shock. What have you done? The alien whispered. Amanda White woke up in the medical bay of Copernicus Station with a pounding headache. The last thing she remembered was working in the lab when the attack happened. As a biological researcher, she had been studying plant samples when the alarm started blaring. Dr. Ryan Lee approached her bed, medical scanner in hand. How are you feeling? Like my head might explode, Amanda replied. What happened? Ryan looked uncomfortable. The station was attacked by a group called the Trusters. They killed Sam from security. Amanda closed her eyes, grief washing over her. She had known Sam. He was always kind, always stopped by the lab to chat. The strangest thing happened after that, Ryan continued, his voice low. Director Benson somehow made objects move without touching them. Amanda's eyes snapped open. What? I know it sounds crazy, but there's more. Ryan glanced around to make sure they were alone. It's not just the director. 3 other crew members have reported strange experiences since the attack. What kind of experiences? Engineer Powell said he could see through walls. Security Officer Clark knew what people were going to say before they said it. And Cook felt emotions that weren't her own. Amanda sat up slowly. Are you saying we're developing powers? I don't know what to call them, Ryan admitted. But I need to check something. He held up his scanner near Amanda's head. The device beeped rapidly, and Ryan stared at the readings with wide eyes. Your brain activity is off the charts, he said. Especially in areas the humans typically don't use. It's similar to what I found in Director Benson and the others. Amanda suddenly felt a strange sensation in her hands. Looking down, she saw small blue sparks dancing between her fingers. Ryan, she whispered. Look. The doctor stepped back in shock. How are you doing that? I don't know, Amanda said, equally surprised. I can feel the energy, like it's always been there, but I never noticed it before. Ryan sat down heavily in a chair. This confirms it. The attack triggered something in some of us, just like the ancient records about Terrans. Terrans. Ryan quickly explained about the information that had spread through the station. How humans might be descendants of a powerful species called Terrans, how the Trusters had attacked to test this theory. They thought killing one of us would prove we're not special, Ryan said. Instead, it seems to have awakened abilities that were dormant. As they were talking, the station's intercom activated. Director Benson's voice addressed the entire crew. This is Director Benson. Many of you have heard about the incident in Docking Bay 3. I must inform you that similar phenomena are being reported across all human settlements. Earth has just made contact. They're receiving thousands of reports of unexplained abilities manifesting in people who experienced strong emotional trauma or stress. The Galactic Confederation has called an emergency session. For now, anyone experiencing unusual abilities should report to medical for observation. Amanda and Ryan exchanged shocked looks. It's happening everywhere, Amanda said. All across human space. Ryan's tablet beeped with an incoming message. He read it quickly, his face growing pale. Reports are coming in from all over, he said. The Confederation is in chaos. Several species have gone into hiding. Others are sending peace delegations to Earth. They think the Terrans have returned. Amanda looked again at her hands where the energy still flickered between her fingers. What happens now? What do we do with these abilities? I don't know, Ryan answered honestly. But the galaxy is watching us, waiting to see what humans will become. Outside the station, a fleet of Confederation ships had arrived. They maintained a respectful distance, not approaching but not leaving either. Their message was simple. We await your instructions. We mean no harm to humans. The balance of power had shifted overnight. The rule that had protected humanity for millennia had suddenly become more than just an ancient law. It had become a necessity for survival. 6 months had passed since the attack on Copernicus Station. The grand meeting hall of Nexus 7 space station was filled to capacity. Representatives from over 200 alien species sat in curved rows, all eyes focused on the central platform where Ambassador Diane Bennett stood. As Earth's chief diplomat, Diane carried the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Behind her sat a council of 12 humans, each showing signs of the awakened abilities that had spread through the human population. Members of the Galactic Confederation, Diane began, her voice steady. We stand at a crossroads in our shared history. For thousands of years, your civilizations lived by the rule. We don't kill humans. Now you know why. Murmurs passed through the alien delegates. Some showed fear, others curiosity. We have learned the truth about our past, Diane continued. We know now that we are descendants of those you call the Terrans. We know about the great powers they wielded and the destruction they caused. One of the oldest members of the Confederation, a crystalline being called Elder Zorax, spoke up. The question before us, Ambassador, is what humans intend to do with these awakened powers. Will you follow the path of your ancestors? Will you seek to rule as they did? Diane looked back at the human council. Steve Monroe, once a simple farmer from the Mars colony, now able to grow plants with just a thought. Emma Garcia, a teacher who could share knowledge directly mind to mind. Paul Black, a doctor whose touch could heal almost any wound. No, Diane said firmly. We choose a different path. She stepped aside, allowing Paul to approach the center. Paul raised his hands, and a holographic display appeared above him, showing images from across human space. People using their new abilities to rebuild damaged ecosystems, to heal the sick, to create new forms of art and technology. In the past 6 months, Paul explained, we have discovered that these abilities respond to our intentions. Those who seek to help, to heal, to create, their powers serve those purposes. Those few who tried to use them for harm found their abilities weakening or vanishing entirely. Diane returned to the center. We believe this is why the ancient Terrans fell. They used their gifts to destroy, and ultimately, those gifts destroy them. Elder Zorax's crystalline form shimmered. And what rule would humans have us follow now? What protections do you demand? None, Diane said, causing a wave of surprise through the hall. The old rule protected us out of fear. We propose a new covenant based on respect instead. She touched a control, and a new text appeared on all screens. We don't kill. Period. The hall fell silent as the delegates read the simple statement. This applies to all sentient beings, Diane explained. Humans, Solidians, Vozari, all species under Confederation protection. We commit ourselves to this principle, and we invite all of you to join us. And if some refuse, asked a Solidian representative, if some choose to harm humans or others. One of the human council members, Roy Adams, stood up. As a former military officer, his abilities had manifested as powerful defensive shields that could protect others. We will defend ourselves and the innocent, Roy said, but we will not seek vengeance or destruction. That is the path that led to the fall of the Terrans. Diane nodded in agreement. We have the opportunity to build something new. Not an empire ruled by fear, but a true community of worlds where all species can thrive together. As the delegates began to discuss among themselves, Diane stepped back to join her fellow humans. Nobody knew for certain what the Confederation would decide. The vote would take days as each species consulted with their homeworlds. But for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy looked at humans not just with fear, but with hope. The rule that had once terrified the galaxy, we don't kill humans, was being replaced by a promise from humanity itself. We don't kill. And as representatives from world after world came forward to speak with the human delegation, Diane knew that whatever happened next, the universe would never be the same.